The wind drifts first, soft and wandering, as if it has travelled a long way to find you. And beneath that wind, there is a slow, steady thrum. A heartbeat that does not belong to your body, a pulse that seems to rise from the floor, from the soil, from somewhere deep beneath the crust of the world, and you feel it before you can name it. A quiet invitation asking how it would feel if the earth itself were alive in ways we never learned to hear. The sound settles around you like a veil, and for a moment you sense the weight of stone and ice beneath your feet. Layers of time pressed into silence, and you wonder what might be moving below them. What kind of unseen realm could hum on a different frequency? What kind of hidden world might breathe beneath continents and oceans, not in darkness, but in a softer light that the surface has forgotten? Your thoughts drift to the 3 legendary gates spoken of in old stories, the silent expanse of Antarctica, where warm winds sometimes rise from impossible valleys, the ancient underworld of Agartha, said to shine like crystal beneath the mantle, and the higher, sacred path towards Shambhala and Kailash, where monks whisper that true doors never open outward, but inward, always inward, waiting for someone who remembers how to listen. Tonight you don't have to believe any of it. Not the kingdoms, not the gates, not the myths carved into snow and stone. All you have to do is rest, breathe, and let yourself notice how the earth feels when you stop trying to explain it, how the unseen places beneath us might be closer than stories suggest. Close enough that their rhythm is already finding its way into your heartbeat. The night settles around you in a way that feels gentle and unhurried, and for a moment you become aware of where your body is not in the rushing rhythm of the day, not in the lists or the noise or the gravity of everything waiting for you tomorrow. But here in this quiet room, in this quiet hour, lying on a bed that holds your weight as if it has been waiting for this moment all along. The blankets are warm against your skin, shaped to the curve of your shoulders, the length of your legs. The slow rise and fall of your breath, and the world outside the window seems to fold into a soft darkness that asks nothing of you. As you breathe, you feel the first hints of your muscles releasing their grip, that small surrender that tells you the day is letting go and the night is taking over in its stead. You feel the mattress receiving you steady and patient, and you can almost sense the deeper stillness beneath it, the floor, the building, the earth itself, all layered beneath your quiet foundation. As your awareness sinks downward, you notice a subtle shift, a feeling that your weight is not just resting on the bed, but sinking into it, not heavily, but naturally, the way a river finds its shape in a valley. You begin to feel your body blending with the surface beneath you, as though the line between you and the mattress is dissolving grain by grain, breath by breath. Every inch of your body finds a place to settle. Your shoulders loosen, your arms grow heavier then softer. The muscles in your legs lengthen as they release their hold. It feels almost like gravity is no longer pulling you down, but drawing you inward, gently guiding you into a deeper layer of rest. You feel like a small map laid out on a vast and ancient world, your contours fitting perfectly into a landscape you did not know you belonged to. The sensation deepens as your breath becomes slower and more even, and you start to feel the bed not just as a surface, but as a bridge between you and something larger. Beneath the mattress is the floor, beneath the floor is the foundation, and beneath that foundation lies the rich, quiet body of the earth holding you without effort. You begin to sense it, a faint and distant hum beneath the world of ordinary sounds, a kind of gentle resonance that lives under the layers of concrete and soil and stone. You imagine the crust of the planet spreading out around you, continents stretching like great sleeping giants, oceans resting in their basins, mountains rising in their slow breath. And beneath all of that, a hidden network of pathways and caverns carved by time or myth, places that stories once spoke of and that dreams still seem to remember. In this moment, as you rest so still, you can almost feel those depths responding to the weight of your body, acknowledging you in their own silent language. Your mind begins to wander as your body rests more deeply, and a question rises without urgency, drifting up like a leaf on a slow current. You imagine the ground beneath you, not as something solid and impenetrable, but as something layered with possibility, as though the bed you lie on is perched above an unseen world, not metaphorical, not symbolic, but tangibly real in a way that only the night allows you to feel. You wonder what it would be like if directly under your room, under this bed, there were winding tunnels descending into the warm ancient dark of the planet. You wonder how it would feel to know that right now, beneath your spine and lungs and heartbeat, there are passages leading deeper than any ocean trench, leading to chambers filled with soft light or quiet air untouched by the surface world. You think of the stories of inner worlds, of warm valleys hidden under ice, of crystals humming in hollow caverns, of places where time slows and sound carries differently, and you sense the weight of those imaginations sinking into your body like sand settling in water. The thought lingers as your body continues to relax, and you find yourself feeling a strange mixture of calm and curiosity. Not the sharp curiosity of daylight, but the softer kind that comes when the mind is drifting toward dreams. You ask yourself quietly how it would feel if everything beneath you were alive in ways you have never seen. If the earth were not a closed sphere but a layered one, with chambers of forgotten warmth, hidden cities, or ancient spaces humming on a frequency just below hearing. Would it feel frightening, or comforting, or simply unfamiliar? Would you feel small lying here above all of that? Or would you feel connected to something older than memory? As you breathe in, the question deepens, and as you breathe out, it loosens, spreading through your body like a warm tide. You feel your back growing heavier, your hands becoming weightless, your thoughts drifting slower and wider, as if making room for whatever truth the night wants to show you. In this quiet space between waking and drifting, you sense the world beneath you as a layered mystery rather than a solid certainty. Your body feels anchored, safe-held, and yet part of something deeper. The thought returns once more, softer now, almost like a whisper rising from the ground. If right beneath the place where you are lying, beneath this bed and this room and this familiar life, there were pathways leading to the heart of the planet, how would that feel? Would it change the way you hear the night? Would it change the way you breathe? Would it change the way you rest inside your own body? As your thoughts sink into that question, your body sinks with them, held by the earth beneath you, steady as a promise, quiet as a heartbeat waiting to be heard. Long before your name existed, long before cities rose on the surface or maps grew crowded with borders, there were stories whispered about a kingdom beneath the world, a place that lived below the crust the way a dream lives below thought. Those stories called it Agartha, not as a single cavern or a tunnel lost in stone, but as an entire realm stretching deep under mountains and oceans. A hidden geography lit not by the sun but by its own quiet radiance. In many traditions it was said that this ancient world was ruled by a figure known as the King of the World, not a ruler of armies but a guardian of balance, a presence that watched over the rise and fall of civilizations above. People told of entrances scattered across the earth, in deserts, in mountains, in polar ice, in forgotten temples, each one a doorway that could open if approached with the right heart, the right stillness, the right kind of frequency. And as you lie here now, letting the night expand around you, you might feel that these old stories are less about geography and are more about a memory your body has not fully forgotten. The legends say that travellers who stumbled into Agartha did not find darkness, but a gentle, luminous glow, as though the walls themselves remembered light. They spoke of winding corridors that opened into vast chambers where water mirrored the ceiling like a second sky. They described beings who walked with quiet purpose, their movements smooth and unhurried, their eyes carrying a calmness that lingered long after the dream awoke. These stories painted Agartha not as a place of fear, but of deep and ancient peace, a peace carved into the stone over ages beyond counting. And as you breathe slowly, you might notice a faint tug inside you, a feeling similar to nostalgia, as though some part of you recognizes the idea of such a world, not with certainty, but with a soft familiarity that hovers just out of reach, the way a half-remembered melody lingers at the edge of your mind. But the version of Agartha that belongs to this night, the version that Chronos Dreams invites you into, is not only a realm of caverns and cities hidden beneath rock. It is a frequency, a tuning of the inner world that becomes clearer only when the body grows quiet and the mind stops grasping at noise. In this interpretation, Agartha is not a destination you reach with your feet but with your breath. It is a layer of awareness beneath the noise of the surface world, a state where the mind no longer rushes, where thoughts soften into currents instead of collisions. In that frequency, the stories say that gentle souls still tend to a city made of intention and light. They shape structures with the calm of their own presence. They carry knowledge in the way they move. They speak with a softness that changes the air. Even without seeing them, you can imagine what it feels like to stand in such a place where the light around you seems to arise from your own chest, where everything hums at the pace of a long, steady breath. If you allow yourself to drift deeper, you might begin to sense that Agartha is not entirely separate from you. It rests in the quiet space between your thoughts, in the stillness that appears when you let your muscles unclench and your breath slow. As your mind eases into that space, you can almost imagine yourself walking along its pathways, your steps echoing softly on smooth stone, your fingertips brushing walls that feel warm with a memory of light. You might picture the city's contours shifting gently, as though the structures grow from a living foundation rather than rigid architecture. The air feels calm the way air feels before dawn, and there is a sweetness in the silence, not emptiness but fullness, a sense that every corner of this realm is holding its breath in a gesture of welcome. You feel both small and deeply connected, as though Agartha is not a place you enter, but a place you return to, a home shaped by a very old part of yourself that you rarely visit. The idea settles more deeply into your chest, and soon with it comes a feeling that is hard to name, a mixture of recognition and wonder. It is the sensation of remembering something without being able to place where the memory came from, like seeing a silhouette in fog that stirs an emotional warmth you cannot fully explain. You sense that this hidden kingdom beneath the earth is connected to a hidden kingdom within you, and that both have been waiting for you to slow down enough to feel them. In this version of the story, Agartha is not distant or unreachable. It is as close as your next breath, as near as the steady rhythm beneath your ribs. It does not demand belief or certainty. It only asks you to listen, to allow the quiet to deepen until you feel the soft hum of something ancient and kind rising from the core of the planet, meeting the soft hum rising from the core of your body. As you rest in this place between imagination and memory, between story and sensation, you might feel that Agartha is a city you have visited before. Not in this life, not in a waking moment, but somewhere in the long, dreamlike history of your being. It hovers at the edge of familiarity, like a word you can almost remember, a name that warms your chest when you think of it. You cannot quite describe its streets or its colours. Yet some part of you feels at home in the idea of it, as though you have walked there in dreams you never fully woke from. That feeling, gentle and ungraspable, is the doorway. It is the place where the myth touches your inner world, where the legend becomes an echo of something your body knows without needing proof. Agartha lives there, in that space where memory and imagination braid together, waiting for you to breathe a little deeper, to sink a little further into the night until its presence feels less like a story and more like a familiar rhythm rising to meet you from beneath the earth. There is a moment as the night deepens and your breath finds its slow rhythm, when your mind becomes soft enough to open to old stories, the kind told in temples tucked between mountains and in monasteries where the wind carries chants across frozen lakes. One of those stories speaks of Shambhala, a kingdom not marked on any map, a realm described in the Kalachakra teachings as a sanctuary where wisdom is not stored in books but in the hearts of those who guard it. They say its people live in harmony, not because they are perfect, but because they have learned to listen to the turning of time itself. They say its teachings hold the rhythms of the universe, the cycles of creation and decline, the breath-like way the world rises and falls. And at its centre sits a lineage of kings, culminating in one who will someday step forward in an age of darkness to guide humanity into a new dawn. As you lie here wrapped in the warmth of your blankets, you might feel the soft gravity of that story pulling at you, asking what it would feel like if such a place were not only myth, but memory. To imagine Shambhala is to imagine a world that breathes differently, a world where time curves like a gentle river, instead of marching in sharp straight lines. The texts say that Shambhala exists somewhere beyond the reach of ordinary perception, hidden by mountains, or by consciousness, depending on who tells the story. Some believe it lies in the northern regions of the Himalayas, surrounded by snow peaks that shimmer like white fire in the sun. Others believe it is not a physical place at all, but a realm reached only through inner clarity, the kind that appears when the mind becomes still as a moonlit lake. As your body sinks deeper into rest, you can almost feel that stillness spreading inside you, making space for the image of a valley filled with gentle light temples shaped by hands that understood the patience of centuries' gardens, where time moves slowly enough that each breath feels like a step toward understanding. In this stillness, Shambhala feels less like a legend and more like a truth your heart half remembers. If Agartha is the deep hidden pulse of the earth, then Shambhala is the breath of its highest peaks, the clear air found only at the edge of the sky. Agartha feels like the roots of a great tree, ancient and steady, holding the world together from below. Shambhala feels like the crown of that same tree reaching upward into light that has touched countless ages. They are opposites only in direction, not in purpose. Both speak of a better world, a gentler rhythm, a wisdom that humanity once carried and might carry again. As you drift between wakefulness and dreams, you might sense these two realms inside yourself as well. The deeper layers where your fears and hopes settle like sediment, and the higher layers where your quietest intentions shine like thin threads of gold. Agartha is the descent into the heart. Shambhala is the ascent into clarity. And somewhere in the middle, in the soft space between the two, you find yourself resting tonight. The teachings say that Shambhala holds within it a prophecy not of doom, but of renewal. It tells of a future time when confusion spreads like a shadow and the world forgets the language of compassion, a time when noise drowns out wisdom and people become strangers to their own hearts. In that age, the story says the king of Shambhala will emerge carrying not a sword but a deep understanding of the cycles of time guiding humanity toward a golden era. Whether this is literal or symbolic hardly matters in the quiet of this night. What matters is how the idea feels as you breathe it in. There is something comforting in the notion that beneath all chaos, a rhythm of renewal waits patiently like spring beneath winter. As you imagine this hidden kingdom, you might feel a warmth blooming in your chest, a sense that transformation is not only possible but woven into the fabric of existence itself. The more you let yourself drift into the idea of Shambhala, the more it begins to feel like a place you might have known long ago. It carries a strange familiarity, the way a distant landscape sometimes appears in dreams with the weight of memory. You cannot recall its streets or its songs, yet the thought of it brings a softness to you, a tenderness that feels like longing. It is the longing for a home you have never visited, but somehow miss a belonging without a history, a recognition without a name. You feel it in the warmth at the base of your ribs, in the way your breath deepens when the image appears, in the sensation that something ancient inside you awakens ever so slightly at the mention of its name. Perhaps Shambhala is not a location at all, but a direction your spirit turns toward when it is searching for peace, as your body grows heavier, sinking deeper into the bed that holds you. Shambhala becomes less of a story and more of a resonance, a gentle pull in your awareness. You imagine walking its quiet paths, hearing the low hum of prayer wheels spinning in the wind, feeling sunlight that seems to hold centuries of kindness. You imagine standing at the edge of its golden fields, watching the horizon curve in a way that feels both infinite and intimate. And in that vision you sense the world you long for within yourself, a world where you move with clarity, where time does not chase you, where your heart feels as though it has finally returned to a place it has been missing for lifetimes. The story of Shambhala rests there, in that feeling, in that soft echo that stirs inside you. And as the night carries you onward, you remain held between Agartha's depth and Shambhala's height, suspended in the quiet understanding that both realms are reflections of something within you waiting to be remembered. There is a moment when the night grows still enough that you begin to sense the world not as a solid mass beneath you, but as something humming, something alive with invisible threads of vibration. If you listen closely with the kind of listening that comes from the body rather than the ears, you can feel that the earth itself seems to pulse with layers of rhythm, each one moving at its own pace. Some of those rhythms are quick, bright, restless, the kind your mind slips into during the day. Others are slower, deeper, like the long exhale of an ancient mountain. In this quiet, the idea arrives gently, as if placing a hand on your shoulder. The earth is a radio, a vast old instrument with 100 bands of frequency, each one carrying a different song. Humanity spends most of its days tuned to the loudest channel, the one filled with static and urgency. But the other bands never stop playing. They are softer, steadier, waiting for the rare moments when someone slows down enough to hear them. As your breath settles, you might begin to imagine the earth not as a sphere of rock, but as a great resonant chamber, the way a guitar's body amplifies a single plucked string. Every movement on its surface sends vibrations downward, and every shift in its depth sends a tremor upward, travelling through soil and stone until it reaches the soles of your feet, the bones of your spine, the space behind your ribs. This idea does not need to be factual to feel true. All it needs is your attention. You lie there with your body growing heavier, and a quiet intuition rises within you, suggesting that maybe the static in your mind is not the only channel available, that maybe there are gentler frequencies woven beneath it. They wait the way a whispered conversation waits beneath the roar of a crowd, patient and unhurried, knowing you will find them when you are ready. The metaphor takes shape around you in the dark. Imagine your mind as a radio, small but intricate, with a dial that turns one soft click at a time. During the day, the dial is stuck near the upper numbers, where the stations are crowded and noisy, where thoughts compete and voices overlap until they blur together. But here in the quiet of this night, you can reach for the dial. You can imagine your fingers brushing over its cool metal surface, feeling the grooves that guide your grip. You can picture the dial glowing faintly, waiting to be turned towards something quieter. Your breath becomes the hand that turns it slow and steady. When you inhale, the dial shifts one notch left. When you exhale, the static fades just slightly. It is subtle at first, like lowering the volume on the world by a single degree, but the moment you notice it, something inside you softens. Take a breath in slow and gentle. Feel your chest widen, your ribs expanding like the bellows of an old instrument pulling in air and possibility. As you breathe in, imagine the dial turning one step toward a calmer station. Now breathe out, allowing your body to sink a little deeper into the mattress. With that exhale, imagine the static thinning. Imagine the sharp thoughts in your mind stepping back, giving space for a quieter tone to emerge. You can almost hear it, a low hum. Beneath everything, the sound of your heartbeat aligning with something older than your own life. Inhale again, another notch on the dial. Exhale, another layer of noise drifting away. The frequency shifts in increments that feel like small acts of permission. This is not about forcing the mind to be quiet. It is about tuning, about leaning into the frequencies that already exist inside you. Each inhale draws you closer. Each exhale loosens the chatter. You begin to feel the difference between the surface thoughts which buzz quickly like the top string of an instrument and the deeper tones that resonate in the belly and the spine. That deep tone is where the night lives. It is where the earth hums, and with each breath you move closer, tuning yourself gently to the band where stillness speaks more clearly than words. As your breathing continues, you may notice a shift not only in your mind but in your body. Your jaw loosens. Your shoulders settle into the mattress with a sense of relief. Your chest opens just enough to allow the breath to glide more smoothly. Your arms feel heavier as though gravity has wrapped them in a warm cloak. These sensations are not distractions. They are signs that the frequency is changing. You are leaving the crowded channels behind, entering the space where silence feels thick and protective, where your thoughts move like soft currents rather than crashing waves. It is as though the air around you has deepened, turned from a surface breeze into a warm ocean that carries you without effort. You might begin to sense the earth beneath you more vividly now. Not as a concept, not as a scientific structure, but as a presence, steady and patient. In this moment, it feels as though the earth has its own song, low and resonant, a tone you can feel through your spine more than hear with your ears. This is the frequency that lies beneath all the others, the one that has been humming since long before any human voice filled the air. It is the bass line, the foundational rhythm, the slow heartbeat of a living world. When your breath syncs with this rhythm, something inside you settles in a way that feels both ancient and familiar. Imagine once more the dial of the radio. You turn it with your next inhale. The sound grows warmer. You turn again with the exhale. The sound deepens. Now, instead of static, you hear something like a long, continuous tone, a resonance that makes your chest feel softer, your mind feel wider. It is the kind of silence that has weight, the kind that cradles rather than empties. You begin to notice that the thoughts which usually rise quickly now drift slowly as though moving through a thicker atmosphere. They feel less sharp, less insistent. They seem to glide past instead of grabbing hold. This is the station you have been tuning toward, the one that exists beneath the pace of ordinary life, the one that carries the melody of rest. As you sink further into this frequency, the world inside you grows larger and quieter. Colours seem warmer. In your imagination, sounds feel rounder. Memories soften at the edges. The inner landscape begins to resemble a vast plain at dusk where light fades gently and shadows stretch without threat. You can almost see it the way the air looks when everything slows down, the way it feels when there is nowhere to go and nothing to do. This is the space where your mind becomes receptive, where it becomes easier to feel rather than think, to notice rather than chase. And in this space, the Earth's frequency feels closer, as though rising up to meet you. Take one more breath in. Feel the radio dial slide to its quietest band. Breathe out, letting yourself settle fully into that station. The static has lifted. The chatter has thinned. What remains is a deep and steady silence that feels full rather than empty. It is a silence you can lean into. A silence that seems to hold you from all sides, a silence that makes your thoughts drift in slow spirals rather than sharp lines. In this space, the world feels softer. Your body feels grounded. Your mind feels open but without tension. and the earth beneath you hums its slow ancient rhythm, echoing through your breath, through your pulse, through the deep calm that now settles around your heart like a warm cloak. When your mind is quiet enough, when the breath has softened and the static has fallen away, you begin to sense the world not as a flat map or a list of distant places, but as a constellation of feelings, each one carrying its own colour, its own temperature, its own rhythm. And in that soft awareness, the old stories of hidden gateways begin to rise, not as destinations carved into rock or guarded by ancient walls, but as doorways in the landscape of your inner world. These are the places whispered about in myths and sagas, places where the veil between worlds grows thin, where the earth seems to breathe differently, where travellers claim to have felt a presence older than civilization. Tonight these gateways unfold not on paper but inside you, each one glowing like a small ember in the dark. You picture the North Pole first, not as a point on a globe, but as a feeling of endless white stretching in every direction, a silence so deep it presses gently against your thoughts. The Arctic becomes a sensation more than a place, a cold clarity that wipes the mind clean, the kind of stillness where a single heartbeat feels loud. In the stories, some say there is a passage there, a hidden descent beneath the ice, but in this night it feels more like an entrance into a state of purity, a reminder of how quiet the mind can become when surrounded by so much untouched space. It feels crisp, like cold air entering your lungs, like a clear horizon that invites you to walk forward without fear of getting lost. Then your awareness drifts toward the South Pole, the Antarctic, a land of sharp winds and frozen oceans, a place where sunlight can linger for months and vanish for months more. The myths speak of warm valleys hidden inside the ice pockets of green, untouched by the surface world realms that seem to belong to another age of the Earth. But the Antarctic's true presence in the map of your inner landscape is its sense of isolation. An isolation that feels strangely comforting, like a room carved out of time where everything unnecessary falls away. It is a place that asks you to slow down, to let your breath match the long patient rhythm of ice forming and melting again. It is a gateway made not of stone but of stillness. Your mind drifts next to the vast emptiness of the Gobi Desert, its golden sand stretching beneath a burning sky. The legends say there are tunnels beneath those dunes, ancient passages once walked by beings older than recorded history. But tonight the Gobi becomes a different kind of doorway, a warm and expansive feeling in your chest, the sense of standing in a place where horizons melt into the wind. There is something about deserts that evokes introspection, a sensation of being small in a way that frees rather than frightens. The Gobi in this inner map becomes a reminder of open space within you, a vast field of possibility where the mind can wander like shifting sand. From the desert, your awareness slips into the cool shadow of deep forests, the kind where the canopy is so thick the light filters in green and gold. Beneath those trees, myths say there are caverns that descend into the earth like veins leading to underground lakes, glowing stones and ancient echoes. But in your inner world, these forests become the feeling of stepping into your own subconscious, the darker corners always softened by dappled light mysteries concealed behind roots and moss. It feels like entering the parts of yourself you do not visit, often the gentle hidden terrain where intuition lives. Then the image shifts to the base of the Great Pyramid of Giza, where stone meets desert with a precision that has defied centuries. Legends whisper about tunnels beneath the pyramid, about chambers untouched by time, about doorways that open only to those who understand the language of silence. Giza in the map of your inner world becomes the feeling of vast ancient memory, a sense that your life is woven into something much larger and older than you can see. It has the weight of history, the calm certainty of stone worn smooth by ages. It feels like the part of your mind that remembers things you can't explain, the part that holds wisdom long buried beneath conscious thought. As each of these places rises and fades, you begin to recognize that the map unfolding within you is not geographical but emotional. Each gateway is a color, a sensation, a layer of your own consciousness. The Arctic's clarity, Antarctica's stillness, the Gobi's spaciousness, the forest's mystery, Giza's memory. These are not locations on a planet, but doorways into yourself. The true geography of hidden realms has always been felt before it is understood. And then there are the two great poles of this map, the places where myth and memory feel the closest to touch. The first is the Antarctic, the gateway of ice, a place so silent that it becomes almost luminous. A place where legends say that Earth's warm inner breath rises through cracks in the frozen crust. The second is Kailash, the sacred mountain in the Himalayas, called the axis of the world, a peak untouched by climbers whispered to be a doorway to realms both above and below. In your inner world, Kailash stands not as rock and snow, but as a towering feeling of reverence, the sense of looking upon something so ancient and pure that your breath slows without you asking it to. Where Antarctica feels like a descent into stillness, Kailash feels like an ascent into clarity. You begin to feel these two gateways as opposite ends of the same thread pulling you gently toward a deeper journey. Antarctica calls you downward into the quiet heart of the earth, and Kailash calls you upward into the clear light of the spirit. Together they form a compass for the night, guiding your mind toward places where the veil thins and the world feels softer, quieter, older. As you lie here breathing evenly, you sense that this map is preparing you for movement. You can almost feel your awareness lifting, as if some part of you is ready to rise from the bed, not in body but in the drifting way a dream rises before it begins. The gateways glow faintly in your imagination, and one of them pulls at you with a gentle certainty. The first journey will be toward the cold expanse of the far south, to the land where white stretches into the horizon and silence is a presence rather than an absence. You feel the air around you shift cool and clean. The night deepens, your breath steadies, and somewhere within you, the map folds itself into a single direction, pointing you toward the edge of the world, where the ice waits, where the wind carries the memory of ancient secrets. The journey is beginning, and you let yourself drift steadily toward the frozen south. You feel the shift before you see anything, a subtle cooling in the air around you, the kind that makes each breath feel clearer, cleaner, as though the world has pulled back all its distractions and left only what is essential. When the scene unfolds in your mind, it begins with a sky the colour of worn silver, a sky that holds no sun, no shadows, only an endless softness of grey that blurs the horizon into the ice below. The light is diffuse, gentle, almost hesitant, as if the day itself is learning how to begin. Beneath that pale sky stretches a sea of ice, vast and unmoving, its surface cracked in long patient lines that look like wrinkles on a sleeping giant. This is Antarctica in its purest form, a place where the earth feels stripped down to its bones, where everything unnecessary has been carved away by wind and cold, leaving behind only white wind and the slow hum of an ancient planet turning beneath you. As you take in this landscape, you might feel a quiet ache of loneliness, but it is a loneliness without sorrow. It is the kind of solitude that feels clean, almost reassuring, like standing in a room that has never been touched by noise. There are no trees here to sway or whisper, no houses to break the horizon, no roads or footsteps or signs of hurry. The world looks untouched, as though creation paused here, leaving a blank canvas waiting for whatever story might come next. The wind moves across the ice in long, steady strokes, picking up loose crystals that shimmer like powdered glass, brushing them across the frozen ground with a sound so soft it barely exists. Each gust carries with it a sense of age, the whisper of centuries passing through a place that does not change. You picture yourself standing on the deck of a ship, a sturdy vessel built to cut through ice sheets that stretch like continents. The hull creaks with each shift, each slow push through frozen slabs that part reluctantly before closing again behind you. The sound of ice breaking is sharp but strangely rhythmic, echoing through the air like distant drums. And beneath that sound, beneath the wind and the groaning ship, there is another presence. Something quieter, something that feels like a deep, continuous thrum coming from the centre of the earth itself. It is faint, but once you notice it, it begins to anchor you, drawing your awareness down past the cold surface, past the layers of ice, toward the warmth hidden far below. The ship moves forward through the vast emptiness, and with each passing moment the landscape feels more and more like a dream, like a world that exists outside the rules of time. The horizon stretches endlessly, curving in a way that suggests the earth is not so much a sphere as a great white cradle holding you gently. The sky remains unchanged, neither brightening nor dimming, as if the sun has chosen to remain hidden behind a curtain of clouds. The emptiness here is profound, but it is not frightening. It feels like standing inside a blank page, a space where the universe has stepped back to allow you a moment of pure quiet. As you breathe in, the cold seems to sharpen your senses, narrowing your thoughts to the present moment. As you breathe out, everything inside you loosens, as though the vastness around you is holding your weight. You begin to understand why people speak of Antarctica as more than a continent, why they describe it as an experience, a feeling, a place where the soul is stripped down to its essentials. The silence here is not the absence of sound, but the presence of something deeper, something that fills the air like an invisible tide. In that silence, you can hear the rhythm of your own heart slow and steady, and beneath it, if you listen even more closely, you might sense another heartbeat, deeper, slower, older. This is the place where the borders of the world seem to unravel, where the mind begins to quiet itself, simply because there is nothing left to cling to. You feel your thoughts drifting like snowflakes, each one falling softly before dissolving into the wide space around you. The cold is not harsh. It is clarifying, the kind that makes you aware of your breath, your heartbeat, the warmth inside your chest. And with each passing moment, you feel more connected to the ground beneath you, as though the ice itself is inviting you to listen, to feel, to remember something your body has always known. There is a sense here that the earth is younger, that in this untouched whiteness, you are looking at a version of the world before it became complicated. It feels like witnessing the first draft of creation, a vision of the planet before forests grew, before oceans rose, before life scattered across continents. And in that vision, you sense the purity of existence stripped of all noise. The simplicity of white and wind and silence carries a strange comfort, as though you are standing at the very beginning of everything you have ever known. As you stand in that vastness, the heartbeat beneath the ice grows slightly louder, not in volume but in presence. It feels like the steady pulse of a massive being resting deep within the earth, a pulse that echoes the rhythm of your own body. The longer you listen, the more they seem to align, two steady beats merging into one gentle rhythm. And in that merging, something inside you settles. You begin to feel that the emptiness around you is not empty at all, but full of quiet meaning, full of a slow wisdom that has been gathering here for ages. In this frozen world of endless white, you sense that the earth has its own way of speaking, not through words, but through the steady pulse that rises from its core. It is here, in the most Barahan place imaginable, that the earth's heartbeat becomes the easiest to hear. The vast emptiness removes all distraction, allowing the most subtle vibrations to rise to the surface. And as you stand in that purity breathing, the cold air feeling your heart slow to match the ancient rhythm beneath you, you understand why the legends speak of hidden realms beneath the ice. Not because they are literal doorways carved into the earth, but because Antarctica itself is a doorway into stillness, a threshold where the mind becomes quiet enough to sense what lies beneath the surface of all things. The sky remains grey, the ice remains endless, the wind continues its gentle sweep across the frozen plain, and you remain there with it not as an outsider, but as someone who has stepped into a world that mirrors the deepest stillness inside you. Antarctica holds you in its vast whiteness, and in that quiet cradle of ice and sky, you feel the heartbeat of the planet pulsing through your own steady and ancient, carrying you deeper into the journey that awaits. The cold you felt before begins to deepen, taking on a sharper edge, the way winter air grows clearer when a storm is gathering somewhere beyond the horizon. As the vast white of Antarctica stretches beneath you, another layer of the story begins to unfold this time. Not in myth, but in history, though the line separating the two has always been softer than it seemed. You remember, or perhaps imagine, the year 1946 when the United States Navy launched one of the largest Antarctic expeditions in its history. They called it Operation Highjump, a mission that brought thousands of personnel, a fleet of ships and squadrons of aircraft across the Southern Ocean toward the frozen edge of the world. Officially, the operation aimed to establish a research base to train troops in polar conditions to test equipment against the extreme cold. And perhaps that is all it was. But in the quiet of this night, as the wind moves softly across the frozen plains in your mind, you cannot help but wonder what drew so many people so far from home, what invisible thread pulled them into a place so empty and so profound. The scene shifts gently, and now you are looking through the eyes of a young pilot assigned to the expedition, one of the many who boarded a ship in the wake of the war and crossed into the unpredictable waters of the far south. You feel the cold seeping through layers of clothing, the way the metal skin of the aircraft holds the night chill, even under sunlight that refuses to set. You see the horizon ahead, a smudge of white that grows wider and wider until it consumes the sky. The ocean darkens as you approach the ice waves knocking against the hull of the ship with a steady rhythm, as though marking time for something waiting in the distance. You climb into the cockpit of a thin-winged aircraft, the kind built to endure wind but not necessarily mercy. The controls feel firm beneath your hands and the hum of the engine vibrates through the frame of the plane, a familiar reassurance against the unfamiliar vastness ahead. As the aircraft lifts off the deck, you watch the ship shrink beneath you until it becomes a small dark shape moving through the frozen sea. Then the horizon pulls you forward and you rise into the thick grey sky. From the cockpit, the world looks both limitless and fragile. The white below stretches without detail, broken only by cracks in the ice that look like veins on a pale skin. The sky is heavy with clouds so dense that they swallow the sun and scatter its light into a dim, endless dusk. The radio crackles softly beside you, a steady static that waxes and wanes like breath. The voice on the other end is calm but distant, fading in and out as though the air itself is tired of carrying sound in such an empty place. You adjust the dial, hearing fragments of instructions, then fragments of silence woven together by wind. Soon the storm approaches an indistinct shape, at first a darker smear against the grey, but within minutes it becomes a wall of swirling white, a curtain of so pulled across the sky. The wind rises, shaking the wings, making the aircraft tremble in your hands. You tighten your grip, steady but attentive. The window fogs slightly at the edges, and you wipe it with your glove, revealing only more white, more movement, more silence within the storm. The radio grows louder, more insistent, but the words are lost in the churn of static, leaving you alone with only your breath and the uncertain pull of the compass. The compass needle quivers, then sways, then settles for a heartbeat before drifting once more as though the magnetic lines beneath the earth are shifting, or bending, in ways you do not understand. You tap the glass, a small instinctive gesture, but the needle continues its slow, confused dance. The storm grows thicker. For a moment you lose sight of the horizon entirely, yet in the strange suspended quiet of that moment something steady arises beneath your fear. A sense of being carried, of being held in a place older than maps, older than missions. You steady your breath. The engine hums, the white deepens, the world narrows to the small circle of visibility ahead of you. And in that narrowing, the thought comes, what drives a person to enter this kind of emptiness? What makes someone leave the known world behind, cross oceans, fly into the Shambhala, step into landscapes that feel like the bones of the earth? Is it duty? Is it curiosity? Is it something deeper, something unspoken, something that whispers from the edges of the unknown? The aircraft breaks through the worst of the storm and the world opens again, though only slightly. You see stretches of ice glowing faintly under the muted light of a sky that cannot decide whether it is day or night. You feel the cold pressing against the windows, thick as a presence. You hear the soft hum of the radio finding its voice again, as though the storm was a curtain that has now lifted. And as you fly across the pale expanse, a quiet awe settles into your chest, a recognition that very few people in history have seen what you are seeing, that very few have felt such profound solitude wrapped in such enormous beauty. There are stories people tell about Operation Highjump, whispers of sightings of anomalies, of strange warm winds rising from impossible places. But the truth that matters tonight is not whether those stories are real. It is the feeling of being on the edge of the world where the familiar drops away and something unnameable rises in its place. It is the sensation of flying toward a horizon that seems more like a boundary between realities than a boundary between land and sky. It is the quiet knowledge that even the most pragmatic missions can brush against mystery simply by venturing into places where the earth still keeps its deepest secrets. As the pilot, you look down through the thin veil of snowflakes and see the ice stretching beneath you, vast and gleaming, marked by patterns that resemble ancient scripts written by wind and time. You feel the faint vibration of the engine, the steady thrum of the plane cutting through the cold, the rhythmic pulse of your own heart matching the distant hum rising from the land below. And again the question returns softer now, as though shaped by a deeper voice. What makes a person cross the white edge of the world? What longing does it answer? What truth does it awaken? You do not need an answer yet. The question itself is enough. It lingers with you as the plane arcs across the sky, as the world beneath you grows even more significant, then even more expansive. The horizon breathes, the ice glows, the storm withdraws, and you continue flying toward the place where the known world ends and the true mystery begins. The memory begins as a blur of white, the kind that lingers behind your eyelids long after a storm has passed. You remember the turbulence, first the shaking of the aircraft as it pressed through the last wall of snow, the way the wings trembled like something alive trying to breathe. In the cockpit, every gauge flickered with hesitation as though the instruments themselves were uncertain about what lay ahead. And then slowly the storm thinned. The sky brightened just enough to show the faint suggestion of a horizon. The roar softened into a hum, and in that strange half-light, something inside you knew the world was about to change. You write these words as though they happened in another lifetime in another mind, yet the feeling of it returns easily. It begins with a crack in the ice, a long dark seam splitting the white world below. At first it looked like a shadow, a trick of the dim light, but as the aircraft drifted lower, the line widened, revealing edges of stone where no stone should have been, cliffs rising from the ice with an impossible warmth in their colour. The cold outside the cockpit glass still clung to you, but beneath you there was movement, steam, rising in soft curls, the glint of water flowing freely through a valley that should have been frozen 1,000 times over. You remember leaning forward, pressing your glove against the glass as though touch might make the scene more real. The valley spread beneath you like a wound in the polar sheet, except that nothing about it felt wounded. It felt deliberate, alive. The river ran in loops of silver, carving its way through fields of green that shimmered in the muted light. Trees, actual trees, stood in gentle clusters along the slopes, their leaves fluttering in a breeze that had no right to exist in a land ruled by ice. And above it all hung a glow that seemed neither sunlight nor reflection, but something soft arising from the ground itself, as though the valley were lit from within. The engine hummed steadily, but the world inside you was no longer steady. A quiet tremor ran through your chest, something between awe and fear, the kind of feeling that springs up when you realize you are seeing something your mind has no language for. You tried to speak into the radio to describe what lay below, but the words tangled in static, swallowed by the air before they could reach anyone. It felt in that moment like the valley existed only for you, as if the earth had parted itself open for a single witness. You write this part carefully, because even now it feels fragile. The aircraft dipped slightly, almost on its own, as though drawn by the warmth rising from the valley. You felt the shift of air pressure, the strange gentleness of the descent. The closer you came, the more the colours sharpened, the greens richer, the water brighter, the cliffs glowing with a golden warmth that defied the sky above. You could see birds now, or shapes that resembled birds gliding with wide wings over the river. You could see movement among the trees, something subtle, something walking through the distance. Muskum? Lost its form. The stories people tell about this place whisper that Bird went further, that he found not just a valley but a world inside the earth, a realm beyond the poles where ancient beings spoke in calm voices and towers rose from glowing plains. But you write this gently, not as fact, only as memory softened by time. These are the things people say, the tales that drift between history and imagination. You do not claim them, you do not deny them. You simply record the sensation of hovering above that impossible green, the way it felt like standing at the threshold of a dream that did not belong to you. The aircraft circled once, and the light shifted across the valley like a long, slow breath. You felt an urge to descend further, to see what lived in that warmth, to understand how such a place could exist where the world should have been hard and barren. But with that urge came a tremor in your hands, a feeling that stepping beyond the edge of the known world carries a weight you cannot always bear. It was not danger you felt, but reverence, a sense that the valley was watching you, waiting for your decision, as though some boundary had been crossed simply by seeing it. In your journal, you would later write the question that rose in your mind at that moment. You write it again now, because its echo lingers. Were you meant to find this place, or had you stumbled into something guarded by silence? And if you stepped any closer, would the world let you return unchanged? You hovered in that state of suspended awe, the aircraft gently circling the valley below, glowing softly like a heartbeat beneath the ice. The fear inside you was not sharp. It was the kind that deepens the breath, that makes the world around you slow its pace. The kind that asks you to look carefully, to feel the edges of your own curiosity. You felt as though the earth had gently peeled back a layer of itself, not to lure you in, but to remind you how little of its truth the human eye has seen. As the aircraft began to rise again, climbing back toward the cold sky, you felt an ache in your chest, a quiet pull, as though something in the valley had reached upward, brushing against your awareness for only a second. It felt like recognition, like the place itself knew you or remembered you or hoped you would return someday. The warmth faded as the distance grew. The ice closed around the valley once more in a white embrace, and soon the world beneath you was nothing but snow and silence again, as though the vision had never existed at all. But it did. You felt it. You feel it still. And as the memory settles into the deepest layers of your mind, it brings with it that lingering sensation of being balanced on the edge of a dream, unsure whether you should go forward or turn back, unsure whether you witnessed something meant to be seen or something meant to remain hidden. What you do know is simple. For one brief impossible moment, you saw a warm world living inside a frozen one, a green breath in the lungs of the earth. And the echo of that vision continues to hum inside you, pulling you deeper into the mystery that lies beyond the poles. The cold remains around you like a quiet presence, but now it carries a different weight, a subtle tension that comes not from the ice itself, but from the stories that have long settled over this frozen continent like drifting snow. As you glide deeper into the memory of Antarctica, another layer of myth rises to meet you unwhispered in old reports and late-night conversations, a story that takes shape around a name, Base 211. People say that during the chaos of the Second World War, as nations clashed and the world trembled, a small and secret part of the German military fled into the far south, carving out a hidden stronghold somewhere beneath the ice. They say they brought strange technologies with them, devices built from designs that looked more like dreams than machines, circular craft that hummed with energy and glided through the air like silent discs. Some call them vril ships, others call them fantasies born from fear. The truth, as always, is quieter than the stories, but the stories continue to echo. You picture it now, the idea of a hidden base carved into the Antarctic rock far beneath the surface where the cold cannot follow. A subterranean fortress is sealed off from the world above its corridors lit by dim lamps, its rooms filled with men desperate to escape the consequences of the war they helped create. In these stories, they slip away into the ice, vanishing from the map, leaving behind only questions that never quite close. And although the details shift from storyteller to storyteller, the feeling remains the same, that there are places on Earth where the past hides in shadows, waiting for someone brave or foolish enough to seek it. But as you drift deeper into this landscape of rumour and possibility, the sharp edges of the story begin to soften. You feel the cold settle in your chest, but it is no longer the cold of Antarctica. It is the cold of human history, the kind shaped by fear, by desperation, by the instinct to run from the destruction we create. And in that recognition, something inside you loosens. You start to sense that the fascination with Base 211 may not be about the base at all, or the aircraft, or the technologies rumoured to have existed. It may instead be about the human longing to hide, to disappear, to escape from the world when it becomes too heavy to bear. The deeper the rumours go, the more they reveal about the people who tell them. A secret base under the ice feels frightening, yes, but it also feels symbolic, like an echo of the hidden places inside the human mind where guilt and fear and unspoken memories are locked away. These internal caverns, these secret chambers, do not appear on any map yet. They shape the world as much as any physical place. When you picture Base 211 now, you imagine not a fortress filled with machines, but a room carved from the darker parts of humanity, a place where our unresolved shadows gather, waiting for the warmth of acknowledgement. The stories of the vril craft, with their strange hum and impossible movements, become less about escaping gravity and more about escaping consequence. People imagine these disks rising silently into the polar sky, slipping away from the world that created them. But you sense that the real escape has always been inward, deeper downward. When the world grows terrifying, human beings look for tunnels. They look for caves. They look for hidden doors that promise safety, even if that safety is an illusion. The myth of an underground refuge is not new. It is woven through civilizations, through legends of lost cities and forgotten sanctuaries. Perhaps the Antarctic version is only the latest retelling of that old desire. As this realization settles in you, the cold that once felt sharp begins to soften, becoming something contemplative. You stand in the vast whiteness again, not afraid now, but reflective, the way one feels when staring at a winter landscape that stretches with perfect, indifferent quiet. The myths of secret bases fade like footprints in the snow, leaving behind the bare truth that the most dangerous hiding places are not under the ice, but inside the human spirit. The corners we refuse to look at, the memories we bury, the regrets we never thaw. You breathe in and the air tastes cleaner. You breathe out and the tension in your chest begins to unwind. The landscape around you shifts not physically, but emotionally, turning from something ominous into something revealing. Antarctica, in all its stark beauty, feels like a mirror, now reflecting both the fear that drives humans to hide and the possibility that we could face those fears instead. The idea of Base 211 no longer feels like a threat, but like a symbol, an invitation to bring light into the shadows we have built. The wind sweeps across the ice again, its long, steady breath reminding you that the Earth holds no grudges. It simply waits. The ice does not judge the stories told about it, nor does it cling to them. It remains pure, untouched, a blank page that gives shape to whatever myths we lay upon it. And as you stand in that purity, the last of your unease fades, replaced by a quiet understanding. The real secret bases, the real hidden rooms, the real caverns beneath the surface are the ones we carry inside ourselves, the ones that need warmth, not fear, the ones that heal when we are brave enough to enter them with a gentleness. You let this thought settle, sinking like a pebble into deep water. The cold no longer bites, the whiteness no longer isolates. Instead, they create space. Space. To reflect, space to breathe, a space to listen. And in that soft, expanding quiet, the journey begins to shift again, preparing you to step further into the unknown, toward whatever waits beyond rumour, beyond fear, beyond the hidden chambers of the past. The ice stretches before you, shimmering endless, inviting you to keep going, to keep listening, to keep walking toward the deeper truth beneath it all. The cold arrives first as a whisper, a thin thread of air brushing against your awareness, not sharp enough to sting, but clear enough to slow something inside you. It is the kind of cold that seems to settle between seconds, stretching time in a way that makes each moment feel long, deliberate, unhurried. As it deepens, the temperature of the world around you seems to fall by degrees you cannot measure. The wind grows quieter, the horizon turns paler. Even the air feels as though it has crystallized each breath, moving more slowly through your chest, as though the atmosphere itself has entered a softer rhythm. In this frozen stillness, something becomes unmistakable. Antarctica is not only a place of ice, but a place where time loosens its grip, where motion slows until the world feels suspended. As the landscape grows colder in your imagination, you feel everything inside you begin to mirror that slowing. Thoughts that once moved quickly now drift like snowflakes caught in a gentle current, each one falling at its own pace, each one landing softly before dissolving into the wide silence surrounding it. Your mind, usually bright with motion, begins to settle, its edges softening its pace, easing. Even memories feel quieter here, rounded, blurred at the corners, as though the cold has gently pressed its finger against them, reminding them not to rush. This is the first gift of this place, the gift of deceleration. You imagine yourself standing again in the endless white, your boots sinking slightly into the packed snow, the cold rising around you like a slow tide. Every movement you make feels intentional, measured, like each step has been lifted from a dream. Your breath becomes visible, a soft cloud that drifts upward and disappears before it has a chance to rise. When you lift your hand, the air resists slightly, as if motion itself has thickened. Even sound seems altered. The world grows so quiet that your own heartbeat becomes a presence, a steady drum echoing through the layers of your clothing, of your ribs, of the ice beneath your feet. This stillness is not empty. It is not the hollow kind of silence that unsettles the mind. It is the deep, heavy quiet that draws your awareness inward, a silence dense enough to hold you without effort. You can feel it pressing gently against you, encouraging you to listen not to the wind or the ice or the vastness of the frozen plain, but to yourself. In this low-frequency world, the noise of life, the anxieties, the rushing thoughts, the internal conversations begins to freeze one by one until only the essentials remain. Your body, your breath, your heartbeat. It becomes clear in this moment how Antarctica can feel like a frequency all its own. Not a place on a map, not a latitude or a coordinate, but a band of consciousness, where everything slows to a tempo that the surface world rarely allows. The cold is not here to numb you. It is here to reveal you. It strips away the unnecessary, the frantic, the rushing. It leaves only what is real, what is immediate, what is deeply present. When the world outside freezes, the world inside begins to thaw. You feel your awareness being drawn inward, past the cold skin of the landscape, past the frost settling around your mind. It is as though the ice itself is guiding you gently, saying, "Listen, not to me, to you, to the slow pulse beneath your sternum, to the steady warmth that remains even when everything else has turned white. The more the outside world stills, the louder the inner world becomes. Your heart echoes through your body like a drum in a cavern. Your breath becomes a soft tide rising and falling. The silence becomes a mirror. This is why the empty places of the world feel sacred, because in them there is nothing left to distract you from yourself. When the air around you is motionless, when the horizon carries no footprints, when the temperature pushes everything into stillness, you are left face to face with the quiet centre you carry. The place beneath the thoughts, the place beneath the noise, the place where the earth's rhythm and your own begin to feel connected. As the cold deepens, you begin to sense something unexpected, a kind of purity inside the stillness. It is not the purity of untouched snow or empty sky, but a purity that arises from clarity. You can feel your awareness settling into a deeper layer, a layer where you can hear the faint hum that lives beneath your heartbeat, a hum that feels older than your name, older than your memories. If you listen carefully, it almost resembles the low murmur of the earth itself, a sound too slow to be heard in the frantic pace of daily life. But here, in the low-frequency calm of Antarctica, it reveals itself like a distant drum carried through the ice. You realize now that this frozen world is not pushing you away. It is drawing you in. The cold, the silence, the slow motion of everything around you. They are not barriers, but thresholds. Antarctica becomes a doorway into introspection, a passage into a quieter dimension where you meet the parts of yourself that do not speak in words. You feel the ice beneath you not as something separate, but as something steady, supportive, ancient. It holds you the way deep water holds a drifting boat. You float in its calm, and in that floating, the next phase of the journey begins to reveal itself, not as an image, but as a soft invitation. The cold that once stilled you now becomes the platform from which you can rise. The low-frequency world has served its purpose, helping you shed the noise, helping you settle into a deeper breath, helping you feel the pulse beneath the surface of everything. And now, like a tide turning, you feel a subtle shift toward warmth, toward altitude, toward something that calls from the highest peaks of the world. The silence of Antarctica wraps around you one last time, steady and grounding, holding you gently before releasing you. Your breath deepens, your heart steadies, and somewhere far above the ice a different frequency waits, a frequency carried on wind on prayer on the thin air of mountains that touch the sky. Soon you will rise from this low frozen band of the earth and drift toward the Himalayas, toward the realm where clarity is the native language, where sound becomes vibration, where the world sharpens into light. But for now you rest in the stillness, letting the cold cradle you, letting the quiet prepare you for the ascent into the next realm of the journey. The cold still clings to you, but now it feels thinner, like a veil that is beginning to loosen, drifting slowly from your shoulders, as if carried by a faint wind rising from somewhere far beyond the horizon. The world of ice around you remains silent for a moment longer, suspended in its low, steady frequency, and then the shift begins. It starts as a subtle change in the air, a sensation that the stillness has reached its deepest point and is now preparing to move to thaw, to lift. You feel it first in the soundscape, in the way the quiet hum beneath everything begins to stretch upward like a note rising gently along the neck of a stringed instrument. The distant drone of an aircraft engine echoes through your memory, a soft rumble that slowly grows lighter, as though someone is turning the volume dial in reverse. The vibration fades from your bones, the mechanical rhythm dissolves into a thin whisper, and then, almost imperceptibly, it disappears altogether, leaving behind a softer sound, something carried by air rather than metal. At first, it is only the faint suggestion of wind, a thin thread of movement that weaves itself into the frozen silence. But as you listen, the wind grows warmer, fuller, as though it has passed over a different landscape entirely. The white horizon darkens not into shadow but into depth, the way the sky looks just before a dawn that has not yet gathered its colours. The ice beneath your feet recedes, softening into darkness, as though the world is gently closing one door before opening another. And then the darkness begins to shift, forming outlines, shapes a slow unfurling of a new terrain. You sense the earth rising again, not in flat expanses of frozen light, but in jagged silhouettes carved against the night. At first they resemble waves frozen mid-crest, each one towering higher than the last, and then You realize these are mountains, the Himalayas emerging through the darkness like ancient giants lifting their crowns to the stars. Their peaks glint with ice, but the cold here feels different, gentler, softened by altitude rather than sharpened by isolation. The air grows thinner, clearer. The wind changes tone, carrying with it not only the whisper of altitude, but something more resonant, the beginning of a melody that is not quite music, not quite voice. As the mountains rise around you in your imagination, another sound joins the wind. It begins as a low hum, steady and warm, the kind that vibrates in the chest more than the ears. And soon you recognize it as chanting a distant thread of monks' voices carried across the high valleys like smoke from a sacred fire. The syllables are too far to decipher, yet their tone is unmistakable, a sound shaped by devotion, by breath, by centuries of repetition. This chanting does not intrude. It welcomes, it opens the air like a doorway. You feel the cold of Antarctica continuing to melt from your body, replaced by a warmth that seems to rise not from the outside world, but from your own sternum, the keeper of your breath. The frequency around you climbs gently, like a hand guiding you to stand taller, to breathe deeper, to see farther. The mountains stretch upward into thin air, their ridgelines sharp as calligraphy strokes written by time. Snow catches the dim light and scatters it in glints of silver. The wind sighs through narrow passes, carrying with it the soft clang of bells hanging from unseen temples, tucked into the folds of stone. The chanting grows clearer now, not loud, but present like a memory surfacing through layers of stillness. Its rhythm steadies your breath. Its warmth loosens the last traces of tension buried in your shoulders. And with each inhale, you can almost feel the air thinning around you, the way it thins on the real slopes of the Himalayas, where every breath must be intentional, where every heartbeat becomes a small act of devotion to the body that carries it. You are still moving, though no vehicle carries you. Your awareness glides through the night like a bird riding a warm current, rising effortlessly through layers of sky. Beneath you, the mountains arrange themselves like vast waves of stone frozen in mid-motion, each peak shaped by wind and eternity. Above you, the stars feel close enough to touch their light, sharp and clear in the thin mountain air. The horizon glows faintly now, not with the pale light of Antarctica, but with the soft gold of distant fires burning in homes perched on cliffs in monasteries, tucked between glaciers and caves where hermits have kept vigil through long winters. As the warmth spreads through you, you begin to sense the difference in the frequencies of the two realms you have crossed. Antarctica's silence was heavy grounding, a descent into stillness where the earth asked you to listen inward. But the Himalayas carry a different presence. Their stillness rises, rather than sinks. It lifts your awareness up through the crown of your mind, inviting clarity instead of introspection. The cold here is sharper, but it does not numb. It awakens. It carries the scent of old stone, of juniper incense, of thin air that has been purified by centuries of prayer. Your breath deepens without effort. You feel your chest expand. Your mind feels lighter, more transparent, as though the altitude has opened windows inside you that you did not know were sealed. The chanting merges with the wind and the bells chime softly, each tone sinking into your ribs like a warm thread of light. This is not the cold of emptiness. This is the cold of altitude, the cold of clarity, the cold that sharpens edges and reveals the pattern beneath the surface. You feel the transition now fully. The journey from the frozen silence of the south to the sacred heights of the Himalayas completes itself not in geography but in consciousness. You have risen from the depths of the earth's slow pulse to the thin air where spirit meets sky. You let yourself hover in this space, breathing in the faint golden light, letting the wind brush against you with cool reverence. And somewhere beyond the nearest ridge, tucked into a valley, carved by ancient ice and shaped by older wisdom, a new presence waits. A presence shaped by prayer wheels and stone steps, by saffron robes and old stories whispered beside flickering lamps. Soon you will follow the sound of chanting deeper into the mountains. Soon you will walk the path that leads toward Kailash, toward Shambhala, toward the whispering heart of the high world. But for now you simply breathe, letting the cold transform into warmth, letting the white of Antarctica shift into the gold of Himalayan dawn, feeling yourself lifted gently by a frequency that asks nothing from you except to rise. The mountain rises in your mind before you see it. A pale silhouette at first, then a crisp outline against the thin air. It is called Mount Kailash, sacred to 4 religions, standing 668 meters tall in the remote western Tibet. Himalayan trekkers, +3. It is said no one sets foot on its summit. Its slopes are not for conquering, but for circling, walking around in reverence. Himalayan trekkers, +1. Imagine you are one of the pilgrims who have come to this remote peak, aware of the thin air that makes each breath cost more, aware of the cold turning your exhale to mist before it fades. At dawn, you join a small procession. Monks and lay pilgrims alike, everyone wrapped in layers, blankets of cold and fatigue. Yet something gentler cloaks them all, a calm, steady belief in what this journey means. The path begins at the base of the mountain, a broad plain of dusty rock and stunted shrubs, the sun barely climbing above the horizon. With each step, your feet make a soft crunch on the earth, the cold rising through your boots, the sky wide and silent above you. Your body feels heavy in the thin air. The altitude wraps around you like water pushing in each inhalation, pulling more courage than the last. Your heart beats louder than it usually does, as though speaking in a language you rarely hear, and your gaze lingers on the mountain's face, its slopes etched with shadows of snow, its ridgelines sharply defined a silent sentinel. The pilgrims ahead of you move with a steady rhythm, step, step, breathe, step. Their faces are calm, luminous, even in the chill. They are not racing. They are walking with the mountain, walking with time. Each footfall feels like a silent drumbeat of devotion. As you circle the mountain, the atmosphere changes. The path narrows, the terrain more rugged. You hear the monks chanting their voices, low, steady, carried in the wind that rushes through the pass. The bells of small stupas ring softly in your memory, each tone a ripple in your chest. You feel tired, but in that tiredness there is a strange clarity. Every step is anchored, every breath is sacred. The mountain holds you in its presence as though you are not walking around it, but with it. It becomes a companion rather than an obstacle. Under the often grey sky, you consider the meaning of this circumnavigation. For Hindus, Mount Kailash is the home of Lord Shiva, the destroyer-transformer sitting in eternal meditation. Tibetur, travel +1 for Buddhists. It is the axis of the world, a sacred mandala made manifest in stone. Journey to Tibet has +1. The very act of walking around the mountain, what they call the Kora, is more than a physical journey. It is a meeting between the pilgrim's heart and the mountain's ancient presence. Alpine luxury treks +1. You feel the altitude tug at you again. Your breath rises in your chest, and for an instant you sense the landscape within you shift. The mountain becomes less external, less remote, and more like an echo of something within your own being. The cold air fills your lungs, but your heart feels a subtle warming. Perhaps it is the recognition that this path of stones and prayer is mirrored by a path inside your soul. The circle you walk is not just around the mountain, but around the deeper corners of yourself. And so each step you make is a prayer without words. Your boots touch rocks that have existed since before most languages. Your eyes scan ridges carved by time's patience. Your heart counts beats that align unconsciously with the steady pace of the mountain's presence. The suffering of the climb, of the thin air, the cold, all of it softens under the slow rhythm of adoration. You feel humbled, rooted, elevated all at once. It is a feeling you have not known before, a mixture of awe and quiet belonging. Like you have come home, but to a home you have never lived in. You walk past small shrines where flags flutter in bright colours, red, yellow, green, white, blue. Their meaning echoes in the wind, drifting away and returning. You pass by other pilgrims who smile at you with knowing eyes because they recognise the same tremor in your chest, the same slow drumming of awareness beneath the fatigue. You share a nod, a soft greeting. No words are needed. Here the mountain speaks and you listen. In the semi-dark of high-altitude evening, you pause at the brow of a ridge, looking down at the path you have travelled and up at the great peak looming above you. The air is so thin your thoughts feel muffled like heavy wool wrapping your mind. Yet your heart is clear. You feel the momentum of your steps behind you, the path curling around the mountain like a quest your soul began long ago. You feel the footsteps of countless others that have circled here, each turn another whisper of devotion. And you understand the mountain does not reward haste. It welcomes prudence, attentiveness, the silent willingness to keep moving when your legs want rest, to keep breathing when your lungs ask for rest. As the light fades and the cold deepens, you wrap yourself in your blanket and lie down under the great dome of stars. The mountain watches, still silent, unyielding. Your eyelids grow heavy. The last image before sleep steals you, your footprints looping around the base of Kailash, a circle traced in stone and air, a prayer carried in each bootprint, a promise of renewal with each inhale. And in that moment you feel connected to the mountain, to the many faiths that honour it, to the ancient geography of devotion, and to the deep journey turning within you. Night settles around the mountain long before your eyes fully adjust to the darkness. The air is thinner here, sharper touched by a cold that feels almost ceremonial. As you descend from the day's long trek around Kailash, a faint amber glow appears in the distance, a small monastery carved directly into the stone near the base of the sacred peak. Its silhouette looks fragile against the great black wall of the mountain, humble and timeless as though it has always been waiting for you. Snow drifts quietly in the wind, falling in soft spirals that dissolve before they reach the warm halo surrounding the doorway. When you step inside, the world outside becomes muffled, replaced by a heavy stillness that feels like the pause between two breaths. The room you enter is lit only by a single butter lamp resting on a carved wooden stand. Its flame flickers, gently casting golden light that dances across the rough stone walls. The shadows rise and retreat like slow-moving waves. The scent of melted yak butter hangs in the air, warm and slightly sweet, mingling with the colder smell of the stone beneath your feet. Somewhere down the corridor, the wind moves through narrow passageways, creating a long, low hum that feels like the mountain exhaling. You wrap your shawl around your shoulders, grateful for the simple warmth. The old monk sits near the lamp, cross-legged on a cushion that has clearly supported decades of meditation. His robes fall in layers of faded red and saffron, and his face is deeply lined, the kind of face carved by both laughter and silence. When he looks up at you, his eyes shine with a mixture of kindness and something older, something like memory. He gestures for you to sit beside him, and you lower yourself onto a cushion across from him, feeling the stone floor seep its coolness into your bones. The monk remains quiet for a long moment, allowing the stillness to settle between you like a shared breath. When he speaks, his voice is slow and textured, shaped by age and altitude. He begins not with a lesson, but with a story. He tells you that long before the monastery stood here, long before the path around Kailash became known to pilgrims, the mountain held secrets within its ribs, tunnels carved by forces older than men, older than scripture. Some say the tunnels were formed by the earth itself, channels of heat and stone created to relieve the pressure of breath held too long. Others claim they were carved by hands, by beings who lived beneath the mountain in ages forgotten. The monk's voice moves carefully through the story, as though each word must be placed gently like a stone on a shrine. He speaks of travellers who once came seeking wisdom, wanderers who believed that Kailash was not only a sacred peak, but a gateway to another world. These travellers were curious souls with hearts awake to mystery, and they followed faint paths into the cliffs, searching for the rumoured openings in the rock. Some found them narrow cracks that pulsed with warm air, hidden passages where the wind carried sounds that did not belong to the mountains. These explorers ventured in with torches and chants for protection. Some returned days later with stories that trembled on their tongues, tunnels sloping downward into vast open chambers, pools of still water that reflected strange lights, inscriptions carved in languages they could not read. But not all returned. The monk does not lower his voice when he says this. Instead, he lets the simple truth settle between you as softly as the snow outside. He explains that some who entered the tunnels never came back, not because they were harmed, but because the mountain does not reveal all its secrets to the world above. Perhaps they found what they were seeking. Perhaps they reached a place where the path forward felt more real than the thought of turning back. Perhaps the mountain simply kept them the way the sea keeps certain ships, the way the sky keeps certain birds. A small shiver runs along your spine, not from fear, but from the gentle eeriness of the story. The lamp beside you flickers, stretching the shadows into long shapes that lean across the floor. The wind outside grows louder for a moment, sweeping through the outer corridors with a hollow moan that sounds almost like a distant voice. Yet the monk remains calm, his presence warm and grounding the way a caregiver might sit by a child listening to ghost stories. There is no malice in his tale, only mystery. He continues telling you of one pilgrim in particular, a young man who arrived many decades ago. This man carried the weight of a restless heart and a mind troubled by questions that no teacher on the surface could answer. He walked the Kora alone, praying not for blessings but for direction. On the third night he wandered into a crevice behind an outcropping of stone, following a soft glow that should not have existed in the total darkness. The monks searched for him when he did not return by dawn. They found no footprints, no torch, no trace at all. But near the crevice they found something else, a warmth rising from the stone, a warmth that felt like breath. The monk pauses when he tells this part, letting the silence expand. You can feel your heart beating more slowly now, each pulse moving through your chest like an echo. The butter lamp pops softly as a droplet of oil shifts. The shadows sway again. Finally, the old man leans slightly closer, lowering his voice just enough to draw you in. He says that the mountain has many levels of reality. The paths you see are not the only paths. The doors you touch are not the only doors. Some are felt rather than seen. Some open only when a traveller reaches a particular stillness, a particular readiness. He does not say that these tunnels lead to Agartha or Shambhala or any of the realms mentioned in hushed legends. He does not name the world beneath the mountain. He simply says that Kailash holds passages for those who can hear the invitation. You feel the air grow warmer near the lamp, even as the wind outside sharpens its tone. The monk's story settles in your mind with a softness that feels almost familiar. It is eerie, yes, but comforting, like the stories told beside childhood beds, the ones that stirred your imagination without waking your fear. There is safety here, a strange safety inside a tale that brushes against the unknown. The monk finishes with a final reflection. He tells you that humans are always looking for hidden things in the world. Lost cities or secret tunnels, forgotten gateways. But often the deepest tunnels are inside themselves, carved by years of living, years of longing, years of dreaming. The mountain, he says, simply mirrors what you carry. If you walk with fear, it shows you fear. If you walk with curiosity, it shows you mystery. And if you walk with a quiet heart, it may show you something sacred. You sit with these words as the lamp's flame dances lower, its glow softening into a warm blur. The wind outside quiets again and snow taps lightly against the wooden frame of the window. The room feels safe and closed, held by centuries of whispered prayers. The monk closes his eyes, allowing the silence to reclaim the space. And you sit beside him, wrapped in warmth and mystery, listening to the mountain breathe through the night, feeling the story hum through your bones, just eerie enough to remind you of the unknown, just gentle enough to guide you deeper into the journey ahead. The butter lamp burns lower, its flame swaying with the faint movements of the air, and the old monk opens his eyes again as though waking from a memory rather than a meditation. His gaze settles on you soft and steady, and without any gesture or preface, he continues speaking, as if the story he carries has been waiting for centuries to find a listener who is quiet enough to receive it. He begins as with Shambhala. His voice lowers, becoming almost melodic, shaped by reverence rather than drama. He tells you that Shambhala is not merely a myth or a hidden kingdom tucked between valleys. It is a realm where the purest teachings are guarded, where wisdom is not taught but lived. In the ancient scriptures, he says Shambhala is described as a place of radiant peace ruled by a lineage of kings who carry a deeper understanding of human nature than any ruler on the surface ever has. The current king, he adds, is said to be waiting for the moment when the world loses its way so completely that a new cycle must begin. You feel the words settle inside your chest, not as prophecy, but as possibility. The idea that somewhere unseen yet present a sanctuary of wisdom endures. A place that has not forgotten the way humans were meant to live, with clarity, compassion, and an unbroken memory of the sacred. The monk pauses to adjust the wick of the lamp. The flame brightens, throwing long waves of gold across the stone walls. The wind outside shifts direction, sending a soft moan through the narrow hallway, as if the mountain itself is listening. When he speaks again, his tone shifts, becoming quieter, deeper. He begins to tell you about Kalachakra, the wheel of time. Not as a system of philosophy or a doctrine found in texts, but as an experience woven through every layer of existence. He explains that the wheel of time is not merely the outer world turning, the seasons shifting the stars, circling the centuries rising and dissolving, but also the inner world turning with it. The body ages, the breath changes, the mind contracts and expands like a tide, and beneath all of it there is a rhythm, a cycle, a pattern repeating itself through everything. He says the outer world, the human body, and the spiritual path are not separate. They are three expressions of the same turning, the same wheel, the same time. You feel something ripple inside you, a subtle awareness that the years you have lived did not simply pass but passed through you. shaping the bend of your thoughts, the pace of your heartbeat, the tenderness of your memories. Time isn't something outside you flowing past like a rivière you stand beside. Time is something that lives inside your chest, moving through your breath, polishing your inner world grain by grain. The monk leans toward the lamp, letting its light warm his face. He tells you that understanding Kala Chakra does not require reading scriptures or learning rituals. It begins with noticing that the breath has its own seasons, the inhale like spring filling you with newness, the exhale like autumn releasing what no longer belongs to you. Your heartbeat rises and falls like the cycles of the moon. Your thoughts grow bright and quiet in patterns that resemble the turning of stars. Time turns the world. Time turns your body. Time turns your inner life. All three wheels rotate together, and when you feel them align, even for a moment you touch the edge of Shambhala. A softer silence falls between you both. The monk looks at the flame, and in that pause you sense something expanding inside your awareness. You can feel the night stretching across the mountain snow falling in silent spirals, the ancient stone holding centuries of slow breaths, and you feel another turning, one that is quieter, deeper. The turning inside you. The monk's voice returns softer now. He says that those who seek Shambhala externally will never find it. Those who seek it inwardly will find hints, reflections, movements, small shifts in the rhythm of their own being. Shambhala, he explains, is not just a kingdom, it is a timing, a state of readiness, a moment when the three wheels align long enough for a person to see clearly, perhaps for the first time. You swallow gently, realizing that the heaviness you once felt from the long journey has changed. It is no longer the weight of exhaustion. It is the weight of recognition, like something deep inside you has turned by one small click, aligning with a rhythm you did not know you were meant to follow. The monk raises a finger, making a slow, circular motion in the air describing the turning of the wheel. And as his hand moves, you begin to feel the truth of what he is saying, not as knowledge but as sensation. The breath entering and leaving your chest becomes a kind of clock. The warmth in the room and the cold pressing against the stone walls outside become two halves of the same cycle. Even your heartbeat seems to echo with the distant turning of something older, something vast. Time is not passing you, it is happening inside you. The monk closes his eyes again, signaling that the lesson, or the story or the moment, whatever it was, is complete. You sit in the glow of the butter lamp, listening to the mountain breathe, feeling your own breath rise to meet it. And somewhere in that meeting, in the soft overlap between the world's turning and your own, you sense Shambhala, not as a destination, not as a prophecy, but as a quiet pulse inside your chest turning with the wheel of time. Settle your body first the way a stone settles into the hollow it has shaped over time. Let the weight of your limbs grow heavier, sinking into the surface beneath you with quiet certainty. Feel the softness of the fabric against your skin, the way the air rests gently on your face, the way your breath expands and falls like a slow tide. In this stillness there is nothing you must hold up, nothing you must brace against. The world narrows to the gentle lift and fall of your chest, the subtle warmth blooming beneath your ribs. This is where the ritual begins, not with effort, but with surrender. Bring your awareness to your heartbeat, that steady sound that has been with you since the very first moment of your life. Feel it as a pulse against the inside of your chest, a soft drumming that reverberates through your bones. In the quiet, it becomes clearer, more distinct, as though the silence itself is amplifying the rhythm. Notice its tempo, notice its strength, notice how it fills your body with a music so intimate it often goes unheard. Let your attention rest there gently, as though you are holding a small bird in your hands. Now imagine that beneath you, far beneath the floor, beneath the soil, beneath the stone, another heartbeat exists. Deep, vast, ancient, the heartbeat of the earth. It is slower than yours, immensely slower, a rhythm measured, not in seconds but in centuries. Its pulse moves through layers of rock and metal, through rivers of molten fire, through the deep chambers where the planet breathes in ways humans rarely feel. You do not need to hear it clearly. You only need to sense it, an enormous slow thrum rising through the ground like the distant echo of a drum struck once every long patient moment. With each inhale, imagine you are listening to your own heartbeat. With each exhale, imagine you are listening to the Earth's. The two begin separate, distinct, like two drums played at different tempos on opposite ends of a vast plain. But with every breath, the distance between them shortens. Your heartbeat begins to slow only slightly, only enough to make space. The Earth's heartbeat rises only slightly, only enough to meet you halfway. and the breath becomes the bridge between them, a soft thread weaving two rhythms into one. Breathe in, feeling your heartbeat clearly, a quick and warm pulse. Breathe out, sensing the earth deep and steady. With each cycle, feel your own pulse shift. Not dramatically, not forcefully, just a gentle easing, a quiet softening, as though your heart recognizes the ancient rhythm beneath you and wants to draw closer. The faster tempo begins to settle each beat, becoming rounder, slower, less urgent. You feel the warmth within your chest expand outward, filling your shoulders, your ribs, the space behind your sternum. Your heartbeat becomes less of a sound and more of a presence, a glow that moves in time with your breath. Now imagine that glow descending, drifting downward through your spine, through your hips, through your legs, until it settles in the soles of your feet. With each inhale, it brightens. With each exhale, it extends roots downward, gently anchoring you into the body of the earth. You are not sinking. You are connecting like two frequencies aligning through resonance. As your heartbeat slows, the earth's heartbeat rises. The two frequencies meet somewhere between your ribs and the depths of the ground, creating a shared rhythm, slow, heavy, certain. It feels like stepping across a threshold not built of stone or metal, but of vibration, as though the air around you thickens in a comforting way, wrapping around your body like warm water in a deep pool. Let yourself rest in that merging. You may notice that your thoughts begin to move differently, now less like sharp flashes, more like currents drifting gently across a vast inner ocean. The edges of your mind soften. The interior becomes spacious, quiet, illuminated by a calm you did not have to create, only uncover. It feels as though the earth itself is lending you its steadiness, its potence, its deep and ancient calm. With every breath you cross further into this shared frequency, not downward, not upward, but inward, through a doorway made solely of resonance. Your heartbeat, once quick, now moves like a slow drum played by a hand made of light. The earth's pulse answers a low, deep vibration that you feel more than you hear. Together they form a pattern that carries you beyond thought, beyond story, into the deep center of your own being. This is not a door of stone. It is not a hidden tunnel nor a physical path. It is a shift, a tuning, a remembering. You are stepping through a threshold made of rhythm. You feel it in your chest, a soft expansion, a gentle widening, as though something has opened quietly without fanfare. The world beyond your eyelids feels further away. The world within feels vast and close. You are not falling asleep. You are falling inward, carried by the slow ancient tempo of a planet turning beneath you. Rest in the rhythm. Let it hold you. Let it guide you. For in this shared heartbeat, you are no longer separate from the world. You are part of its pulse, part of its breath, part of the deep frequency that has shaped mountains, oceans, forests, and the long arc of human time. Stay here as long as you need breathing. With the earth heart, answering heart rhythm, meeting rhythm, crossing the invisible doorway made not of matter, but of vibration. The threshold has opened, and you are already inside. You feel the threshold open, not with a flash, not with a sound, but with a softening, like the moment a dream begins, when the edges of the waking world loosen and another landscape rises quietly to greet you. The shared rhythm between your heartbeat and the deep pulse of the earth becomes the bridge, and as you rest in that slow, ancient tempo, something shifts in the texture of the darkness behind your closed eyes. It grows lighter, warmer, as though illuminated from within by a glow that does not hurt, does not dazzle, but invites. You take a breath, and the air around you seems to change. It is not the thin chill of the mountains, nor the frozen clarity of Antarctica. It is warmer, softer, with a quality that feels almost like being wrapped in sunlight that has forgotten how to burn. The darkness brightens further, revealing a gentle radiance, pale gold, soft pearl, warm amber melding together, as though made from the breath of 1,000 candles burning behind a curtain. The light is everywhere, but never overwhelming. It is like the first glow of dawn on a world waking slowly. Shapes begin to form, not sharply, not in detail, but in impressions. Curves, soft arches, rounded forms rising from a luminous ground. You are not walking so much as drifting gently, carried by the slow rhythm that brought you here. As your awareness adjusts, you start to see the outline of structures, not buildings as the surface world knows them, but forms shaped by intention rather than architecture. They curve like shells, like petals, like waves paused in motion. Their surfaces glow with the same soft light that fills the air as though they were grown, rather than built, shaped by harmony rather than force. A river of light flows nearby, moving with the calm certainty of water but shimmering like liquid starlight. It bends around the curved structures with gentle grace, casting reflections that shimmer across the luminous ground. The sound it makes is not quite sound, more like a feeling of vibration of peace that hums softly through your chest. You step closer, and the radiance seems to warm your skin without touching it. Every part of this place feels alive with a quiet, safe awareness. Figures move in the distance slowly, gracefully, as though the entire realm exists in a different tempo. They are tall, or perhaps the light simply stretches them gently. Their outlines are smooth, their movements fluid, each step placed with purpose and ease. They do not rush. They do not look hurried. They move the way one breathes in deep meditation naturally without tension. You cannot see their faces clearly, but their presence carries a kind of kindness that reaches you without words. It is the feeling of being welcomed by someone who has known you far longer than you have known yourself. As they pass, you feel no need to speak, no need to explain who you are or why you've come. In this place nothing is measured, nothing is judged. Everything simply belongs. You sense that if these beings were to turn toward you, they would recognize you immediately. Not your name, not your history, but the quiet truth beneath all of that. A truth you sometimes forget, but one they seem to remember effortlessly. The air hums softly with understanding. You move deeper into the city, if city is the right word. It feels more like a garden of light, a sanctuary shaped from the inside out. The structures glow like lanterns made from moonlit water. Pathways curve gently through open spaces filled with a warmth that seems to rise from the very ground. Nothing here has angles. Everything flows. Everything invites. The silence is profound, but not empty. It feels like the silence in a place where everyone understands each other, without speaking, where thoughts drift like warm currents, and the heart can rest without armor. There is no noise here, no engines, no alarms, no overwhelming chatter. Even your thoughts grow quieter, settling into the same gentle flow that shapes this realm. You feel the absence of hurry, the absence of pressure, the absence of being seen as anything other than yourself. In this place beneath the earth, or perhaps within its frequency, you begin to sense why so many stories describe it as a realm of peace. It is not because of what is here, but because of what is not. There is no fear in the air, no urgency in the movements, no separation between one being and another. Everything breathes in harmony. Everything glows with the same quiet light. You feel something inside you shift, a loosening, a softening, as though you have stepped into a place that remembers you even when you forget yourself. A place that holds the version of you untouched by worry, by doubt, by noise. As you breathe, this version rises slowly, gently, like a reflection coming into clarity. You drift past the river again, watching its luminous current weave around shimmering roots that glow from beneath the ground. The beings nearby pause to look at the water or perhaps to listen to it, though it makes no sound. You sense that in this realm listening is not limited to the ears. Awareness itself is the listener. And the river seems to whisper a kind of reassurance, a message carried not in words but in warmth. There is no need to hurry. There is no need to prove you are already held. The feeling moves through you like a soft wave, dissolving tension you did not realize you were still carrying. A heaviness leaves your chest, a quiet expands behind your red chi. You feel seen, understood, accepted, not for what you've done or what you might become, but simply for the rhythm of your own being. You continue drifting, the ground beneath you, glowing faintly with every step as though responding to your presence. The city stretches on round chambers, domed halls, gentle bridges arching over rivers of light. Everything curves toward openness. Nothing closes, nothing restricts. And slowly you realize what this place is offering you. Not answers, not revelations, but a feeling, the deep, unshakable feeling of being allowed. Allowed to rest, allowed to exist, allowed to be in your most natural state without effort, without expectation. The beings move past you again, their pace slow and steady, their presence warm. One of them turns slightly, pausing as though sensing your thought, your presence. They do not speak, they do not need to. The quiet that surrounds you deepens, becoming almost tangible. A soft glow moves through the air like the warmth of a hand resting on your shoulder. You breathe. The heartbeat of the earth beats solely beneath this realm. Your own heartbeat has eased into its rhythm, and together they carry you forward deeper into this place where light curves like water and silence embraces like a long-forgotten friend. You feel, perhaps for the first time in a long time, utterly accepted. Not because you arrived here, but because you have always belonged. The light of the inner world softens around you, dimming the way a lantern dims, not from lack of fuel, but from a desire to let darkness speak. The glowing structures fade into the background, becoming gentle silhouettes, and the beings who moved with such quiet grace drift farther away, leaving you in a space that feels intimate and open, as though the entire realm is exhaling around you. The warm air hums faintly with the same slow rhythm that brought you here, and you begin to feel that something older than cities of light, older than mountains or oceans, is preparing to speak. Not in words, not in anything the mind must decipher, but in feeling. You stand or float or simply are in a wide hollow filled with a soft, rising glow. The ground beneath you pulses faintly like the last ripples of a heartbeat travelling upward through stone. You place your hand over your chest, and in the quiet that follows your own heartbeat answers with a gentle thrum. For a moment they merge, blending into one warm rhythm, and then like a whisper travelling through the body of a sleeping giant, something moves beneath you. A presence. Not a voice exactly, but something steady and patient and ancient. The pulse deepens, and a warmth grows in the space behind your ribs, the kind of warmth that does not push or pull, but invites. And you realise with a softness that feels like recognition that the earth is speaking not as a deity, not as an authority, but as a companion who has been holding you since the moment you were born. The first feeling that rises is simple. Go slower. The phrase does not arrive in language. It arrives in sensation, like the spreading warmth you feel after stepping into sunlight. You breathe in and the message blooms a little more. Go slower, not because the world will collapse if you rush, but because there are things you miss when everything moves too quickly. The sunlight through leaves, the sound of someone's breath when they are thinking, the tiny shifts in your own heart when you stop long enough to feel them. The earth seems to say that its rhythm is slow for a reason, that presence is found not in speed but in depth. Another wave of warmth rises. Listen to each other. The message curls around you gently like a hand touching your shoulder with nothing but kindness. You feel it expand in the air, echoing through the glowing arches of the inner city. You sense it in your own body, in the places where your breath catches, in the quiet memories of conversations where you long to be heard. The earth's whisper carries no judgment, only the understanding that life becomes softer when we listen, really listen to the hearts around us. That beneath the noise of the world, every person is carrying a rhythm of their own, a small trembling song waiting for someone to hear it. The glow beneath you strengthens, becoming almost like a sunrise rising from below, and now a final message moves upward, gentle and steady. Remember the deep place. You feel your breath deepen without you asking it to. Remember the deep place not as a command, but as a reassurance. The earth shows you an image, not with sight, but with sensation, the world's surface, bustling with noise, activity, lights, urgency. And beneath it, always beneath it, a vast stillness, a quiet reservoir of patience, a hidden chamber of calm. The earth reminds you that this stillness is your inheritance, that you can return to it at any time. Not by travelling to hidden realms, not by descending into tunnels, but by softening into your own inner quiet. Every city has a silence beneath it. Every storm has a calm centre. Every person has a deep place waiting for them to remember. This understanding settles through you like warm sand through an hourglass. You feel smaller somehow, but not diminished. More like a single thread in a vast tapestry, fragile on your own, beautiful in connection. The earth is the immense, ancient, powerful, and yet it does not make you feel insignificant. If anything, the immensity feels like an embrace, a reminder that you belong here, that you have always belonged, that your existence is not an accident but a note in a much larger song. You inhale, and the warm glow expands. You exhale, and the glow settles into your bones. A sense of gratitude grows quietly in your chest, not forced, not ceremonial, just natural. You thank the earth not in words, but in the way you soften your breath, in the way your shoulders drop, in the way your mind loosens its grip. You thank it for holding you through years you barely remember, for carrying you without complaint, for offering beauty, even when you were too tired or too busy to see it. Slowly the light around you dims again. The crystal structures melt back into the soft glow of the inner world. The beings remain at a distance, watching with gentle acknowledgement, as though they recognize the shift inside you. The pulse of the earth grows quieter, settling back into the deep rhythm beneath the realm. But something of it remains with you, a warmth behind the ribs, a steadiness in the breath, a quiet turning inside your chest that mirrors the turning of the planet itself. You stand in the dim light feeling small but connected, humble but held aware that beneath every hurried day of your life, this whispering calm has always been there, waiting for you to slow down enough to hear it. And now you have. The earth recedes into its deep rhythm. Your breath settles into its own. And a soft, wordless gratitude fills the space between them. Let the glow of the inner world fade, gently dissolving into a softness that feels like warm breath against your shore. Let the light of those hidden realms loosen into darkness, the kind that welcomes rest. And as the shapes fall away, feel your body settle back into the familiar cradle of your bed, the quiet weight of blankets resting over you, the slow movement of air entering and leaving your chest. The room around you is still the night unhurried. Your heartbeat feels steady again, warm beneath your ribs as though it has carried a small piece of the earth's ancient calm back with it. Your breath grows lighter, spreading through you like a whisper. Your limbs feel heavier, softer, as if the bed is holding you a little closer tonight. The world narrows to the rhythm of your inhale and exhale, each one slower than the last, each one guiding you toward an even quieter place inside yourself. And before sleep rises fully to meet you, a single question drifts into the silence, settling beside your thoughts like a feather landing on snow. If every night is a journey into the depths of the earth within you, which layer will you wander into tonight? Let the question open softly. Let the rest take you.